to Governor Bryant. Also had with us today the Mississippi Corps of Engineers, Mississippi Army Corps of Engineers, and the Mississippi Levee Board, as well as other representatives in and around the affected areas of the backwater flooding. This event has surpassed being a single weather event. This event is now of historical proportions, and the duration of this event has now surpassed what we have seen since the flood of 1927. As such, the second, third order effects from this event to human life has been disastrous, and we will be seeking again and reiterating the Individual Assistance Disaster Grant. We continue to operate under the state of emergency that Governor Bryant issued back in February for this event, and we will be seeking also continue to be adding those areas that are affected in those affected counties for public assistance disaster grants. The issue has been and continues to be the persistence of floodwater. The floodwater has most recently in the past few days reached record levels in the Eagle Lake community and again those affected counties. It is estimated that the public assistance damage to those affected areas is going to be in the millions and millions of dollars. There is no way for us to assess that damage that those floodwaters received, so this is unfortunately going to be an enduring event. At this time, I'd like to turn the podium over to our governor, Governor Phil Bryant.
Thank you, Colonel Michel. I appreciate the hard work of the men and women at MEMA that have had a very busy year. There have been more weather events occurring in 2019 than in anyone's recent memory, including tornadoes, obviously straight line winds and damages, and now floods. One of the challenges that we have just now is 544,000 acres in the Mississippi Delta, primarily Yazoo Backwater, is underwater. 250,000 of those are agricultural acreage. So the loss of that entire crop will occur. It would be all but impossible for any planting to occur in that area. So we look to the financial struggles that will occur because of that. But just now we're looking at the damage to homes. Some 515 homes have been affected to some level of damage by the floodwaters that have been in that area for approximately 2 months. I will turn the information now, or ask for additional information now from Colonel Erosion of the Corps of Engineers. Let me say that the Corps has done a remarkable job. We do not know and cannot appreciate entirely the damage that has been prevented by the work of the Corps over the last 30 and 40 years. This, as bad as this situation is, and it is historic for the Mississippi Delta, it would have been much worse without the structures, without the work, without the engineering of the Corps. So Colonel Erosion, if you will come and let us know the work of the Corps that has been done and what we can look to into the future. Colonel.
Governor, thank you very much. I'm Colonel Mike Erosion. I'm the commander of the Vicksburg District, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. First thing I'd like to do is provide a little context for what we're dealing with here. This region of the country is the wettest that it's been now in about 125 years. We passed more water down the Mississippi River this year than we did during the flood of 2008 and also during the flood of 2011. At Vicksburg, we've been above flood stage for 95 days, which is a record number of days above flood stage since the flood of 1927. As the governor mentioned, we're at record levels in the backwater area in terms of flooding there. The National Weather Service has provided a forecast that shows a slight drop in the river, but then a rise again in early June. We'll need that bump in the river to drop out in order for us to be able to open up the Steel Bayou gates. Steel Bayou gates are key for us to be able to drain water out of the Yazoo backwater area. And I'd like everybody to know that it's going to take weeks and even months for things to return to normal across the Yazoo backwater area. As the governor mentioned, there's been a lot of work that's gone into the Mississippi River and Tributaries Project since the Flood Control Act of 1927, following that devastating flood of 1927. A lot of that infrastructure has prevented further damages across the region. So our hearts and minds and our best engineers are with the communities of Eagle Lake and those other areas that are being impacted right now. But please know that that infrastructure that's been constructed over the past years and decades has provided tremendous amounts of protection to this region in the Mississippi Delta area. Thank you very much, Governor.
Thank you, Colonel, to the Corps. We'll add we're working with the Corps, who has done a remarkable job working with EPA. The veto of the pumps that would have helped reduce some of the water, particularly in the Yazoo Backwater flooded area now, are under review by the EPA. That veto of 2006 is being reviewed. We know our senators and congressmen are working very closely with the leadership at EPA. And we hope that that veto will be overturned and that we will be able to proceed on putting pumps into that Yazoo Backwater area. It is something that the Corps of Engineers has stood for and encouraged for some time now. We believe it would have a dramatic effect by reducing perhaps by half the amount of acreage that is flooded in the Yazoo Backwater. And you can think of the homes and agricultural land and now forest land that would have been saved had the pumps been in place. And as my understanding would, if they were in place, the Mississippi River would have increased by less than an inch. So we are working every day on that. The man that is on the ground, the men that are on the ground every day there in Warren County, John Elfer, who's Warren County EMA. John, if you could tell us what we've got in Warren County.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Governor. I'm John Elfer. I'm the Warren County Emergency Management Director. Briefly, since Friday, conditions specifically in the Eagle Lake area and other areas in northern Warren County have deteriorated to the point where we've added an additional 30 road closures to the roads that were already closed. That includes roads that were inundated due to the Mississippi Riverside. The citizens at Eagle Lake, many have left. We still have a few people up there. We have boots on the ground 24 hours a day. The sheriff is going to speak to the law enforcement side of it, but he's also been very heavily involved in the emergency management side of it. I will say this, of all the natural disasters, the man-made disasters that we've all been through together over the years, this one, thanks to the work with the governor's office, our MEMA relationships, our relationship with the Corps of Engineers and other state, federal, and local partners has resulted thus far in no loss of life. And that's our primary concern, is life safety at this point. The flood fight in certain areas is over. The flood fight in other areas continues. Our hearts and thoughts and prayers go out to those folks that are trying to protect their homes as well as other property. It's a tragic event. It's going to be here for many, many weeks, if not months, and we want to get through this thing without anybody being seriously injured or certainly killed. And we're asking and begging the folks to heed the warnings, to listen to us, to don't do anything to get in trouble, because we certainly we're going to be fighting this thing for a while. And we certainly don't want to see anybody injured. Governor, again, I want to thank you for everything.
Thank you, John. John's done a remarkable job. As the days and weeks go on, I can tell you exhaustion of the men and women that are there on the ground will take place. We will do all that we can to support them, whether it's the Department of Public Safety, other law enforcement officers, volunteers. Filling sandbags, over 300,000. Have been dramatic. But the man that is there with law enforcement every day, Sheriff Martin Pace, he's no stranger to flooding, unfortunately in Warren County, but I know Sheriff Pace will give us an update from a law enforcement perspective. Sheriff,
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Governor. Warren County Sheriff's Office has always been there on the boots on the ground for the floods that have occurred in primarily north and western Warren County. This has been a historic event, though. We have had deputy sheriffs assigned to the Eagle Lake community specifically since the end of February. With the road closures, it has become so difficult to travel back and forth to Vicksburg. We've actually moved a temporary structure to the Eagle Lake community and established a substation at Eagle Lake and have a patrol squad of deputies that are assigned there. They have vehicles capable of accessing those areas that can still be accessed by a traditional vehicle. We also have boats assigned to that unit.
Thus far, we have not had any looting problems, nor have we had any injuries. We have and continue to enjoy a very good partnership with the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. So those wildlife officers have been there with us throughout this event to assist us. What our message is to the public, though, is if you do not have business in these flooded areas, don't show up. We have restricted these areas to the people that have that own property there, that live there, or are coming there to specifically assist someone. If they don't have specific business in these flooded areas, they will not be allowed access into them. Even for those that do have business there, we are logging and registering everyone that comes in and goes out. So we're keeping track of everyone that are in these flooded areas, specifically the Eagle Lake area. And again, Governor, we certainly appreciate the partnership with the state of Mississippi, and we appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. As the sheriff said, if you, we don't need sightseers. If they do not have business in there, they will be stopped, not allowed into the area. I want to thank Representative Kevin Ford. It was here early, and Senator Briggs Hobson. The delegation has been working with those in the affected area. John Carlos, Board of Supervisors, District 4, and William Banks, District 2. So you can see this is a team effort. We are not waiting for the water to go down. We are responding now. John is doing a survey from boats so that we can begin to, for FEMA purposes, gather as much information as we can. We're in contact with the U.S. Department of Agriculture for any relief that might be available to those farmers that will have a dramatic loss of income. Not only are their homes flooded, their crops will not be planted. So this, again, you heard the term historic event. It is certainly that. 1927 was a line of demarcation for most of us that lived in the Delta. This may replace that. This is indeed the Great Flood of Mississippi. We're trying to furnish you all the information that we have. The detailed information from the briefing I just received will be on MEMA's website, so everything I know you will know. We have nothing that we are not releasing and providing to the general public. We want to thank the media for helping us do that. Colonel Michel and team will be here to answer any further questions that you might have. Thank you for your attendance.
That wraps up the formal portion of our press conference. Do we have any questions this time? Yes, sir.
It's always the magic question, I guess I always ask, about meeting the thresholds for individual assistance. Is the groundwork laid, for lack of a better description, to be able to get that because there's so much water on the ground?
Yeah, so a good question is one that we get quite often. So the individual assistance disaster declaration, we were initially denied. We were denied primarily because, in my understanding, was the fact that we were unable to obtain the damage estimates that we needed under the normal FEMA criteria, but because of the water being in there, we could not get into homes. We are appealing that. Actually read the draft of that appeal today. We're making a very strong case. This is not a normal flooding event, and as such, FEMA is having to look at this very differently. The damage criteria that they use for rating individual homes for flooded events do not apply here because it does not take into account the duration by which homes have been underwater. And for the case of this event, we've got homes that have been underwater since February. Again, unprecedented. So because of that, I do believe that we have a very good case to get individual assistance for these folks. And there is no doubt in my mind that we will be able to get a public assistance declaration for these counties as well. Yes, ma'am.
How long do you think it'll take for communities affected to recover economically from this disaster?
Years. It will be years. And as Colonel Erosion with the Corps has already indicated today, that this event is still weeks and months away from being over. Everything is based upon the level of the Mississippi River, the ability to operate the structure at the Steel Bayou to let this water out. And to put this in the very simplest of terms, if you can imagine a bathtub, this backwater area, this 550,000 acres is a bathtub that is filled with water. The stopper is the Steel Bayou structure, and until that Steel Bayou structure is able to be opened, that stopper cannot be pulled from the tub. So it's a very long and a very enduring event that these folks are going to have to go through. And the effects on it will be years, no doubt.
If people need help now, they've been flooded out, where can they go? What can they get?
Well, so first of all, we have now for the third time opened up an individual housing assistance center in Warren County. And that's not just for Warren County, that's for any of the areas that need and can come in and apply for individual short-term housing assistance. And what that program basically does is it gives individuals the option to go out and find another place to live until this floodwater goes down, and they can be reimbursed for their expenses if they qualify. That is not something that most people want to do. And again, the uniqueness of this area is that we've got people's homes that even though they may be surrounded by water, they're still habitable. The only problem is that they are cut off from emergency services, and as the sheriff and John Elfer have already alluded to, it really puts them in a bad position to be able to go in there and get them. But if they are in these areas, and if they do need assistance, I urge them to work through their emergency managers, request identify what their needs are, and we will work to our best ability to meet those needs until we can get through this event.
Do you have a cost of the disaster?
Well, you just talked to me. You just heard me mention on the public assistance side, and we're talking about the public infrastructure for these affected counties right now, which we're talking specifically for this backwater flooding event. Warren County, Yazoo County, Humphreys, Issaquah, Sharkey. It's going to be in the millions for the public assistance. With regard to the individual assistance, we don't yet know because, again, if you heard me earlier talk about the uniqueness of this is requiring us to go outside the boundaries, if you will, from the normal FEMA guidelines for IA, but it will be in the tens of millions of dollars based on our estimates just in these counties alone that are underwater, and we won't be able to know for sure if the water goes down and we can assess roads and bridges, sewer, water infrastructure. The water will have to go down to be able to get that.
How long do you think it'll take the water to go down?
Well, and that's the magic question. And again, the Army Corps of Engineers addressed it today. You really don't know, but we can certainly say that it's going to be weeks and months. It will not be gone anytime soon, unfortunately.
Will there be special attention paid for the agricultural impact, farmers and things of that nature?
So the farmers, the folks that are affected agriculturally on the economic side of that is a separate. There's separate assistance that's available to them. Matter of fact, Secretary of State Delbert Hosemann has been engaged and involved in that. Unfortunately, that's a separate. I say unfortunately, actually, fortunately, it's a separate disaster grant program that's outside of my agency. But yes, there are types of grants and aid available to them to assist them.
Will they be able to apply for both, the individual assistance and the agricultural?
If they qualify, they can. The individual assistance would apply to their individual homes, and then the other, any type of assistance that they might be eligible for would affect the business portion of their agriculture, their crops, and whatever they lost during this time. And again, that works outside my agency.
So you said 515 homes have been damaged. Do you know a number of businesses?
That's a guesstimate on the homes. The businesses. I don't have those numbers with me right now, but it is in the hundreds as well. Because you got to keep in mind that that falls under the your public assistance piece of this.
Have y'all had to do a lot of rescues as well?
There have been, and I can let John Elfer and or Sheriff Pace talk about the rescues that there have been. Would y'all like to talk and address that?
We have effected several rescues, some off of the Flowery Road area, north and west of Redwood, Mississippi, and several in the Eagle Lake area.
Thank you, Sheriff. Anyone else?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you again for being here today and supporting this event. And again, I just want to make one other comment. Thanks to all those individuals that have been working hard in the Eagle Lake community and the other counties that have been affected. Everyone has worked very hard to do their best to try to minimize the impact, but it's just only so much you can do when the waters reach your level. So we want to reiterate the fact that our hearts and prayers go out to them and those folks that are affected. Ray, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, sir. We'll provide you all with some drone footage that we have from before last week and the current situation. We'll have that on our YouTube page, on our MEMA YouTube page. If you ever download that, just credit us. Feel free to use it.